Welcome to Corrections Mama 27 channel. So we're doing a continuation on minor disciplinary hearing procedures. This is the book that I'm using. It's about Texas. And this is a handbook that's given to inmates, and it's also a handbook given to officers when you begin. So I have already done a lot of the other disciplinary procedures, rules that you have to follow, things you can get in trouble for. This is part 3, minor disciplinary hearing procedures, and I'm going to read it from the book a little bit and also add my comments, and we'll discuss it. So it says, minor disciplinary hearing procedures, a hearing. Disciplinary hearings are classified as minor, shall be heard by minor hearing officers. The hearing officer shall be at least the rank of a lieutenant, and inmates shall be served with the notice of disciplinary charges at least 24 hours prior to the hearing within 30 days of the discovery of the alleged violation. So what does that mean? So that means that if some time has passed and they weren't aware that the violation has taken place and it comes to light later, then they can easily just implement a ticket and begin the hearing process. So if they don't know about it and find out about it at some point later, it can come back and get you in the butt. And they also have to give the inmate 24 hours notice prior to the hearing. So unless you waive that, you can waive that. So if you get a notice, same day that you have a hearing, and then you can fight that. And you don't have to be a captain to do the hearings. They let lieutenants do the hearings for minor violations, which is kind of getting their feet wet, because as they promote, and if they promote to a captain, then they'll be doing major disciplinary. So the discovery also has to be within 30 days of discovery. So if you break the rules and do something and they decide it's worthy of a ticket, they have to find out about it within 30 days. Otherwise, it's a wash. So the charges will be explained to the inmate in terms and he or she can understand. Inmates may not be subject to any form of coercion designed to persuade them to waive their rights to 24-hour notice. If inmates are offered the opportunity to a 24-hour notice, they must be fully informed in the terms intelligible to them of the nature of their rights at stake. All applicants' time limits and minor hearings are the same for major hearings. The inmate may submit a written statement to the hearing officer in response to the charges. In addition, the inmate may make verbal statement in his defense during the hearing. At the time of the inmate is served with a notice pursuant to a minor disciplinary hearing, the inmate shall be informed of their rights. Confirmation that the inmate was advised of these rights will be noted on the original disciplinary report. If found guilty, the hearing officer may impose one or more of the following minor penalties. All right, so this is the types of disciplinary action that can be taken against you. They can give you a counseling and a reprimand. So my guess is that they're going to look and see in your record if you've had prior disciplinary similar to this one. If you have and you haven't learned your lesson, probably not going to get a slap on the hand. 2, you get extra duty not to exceed 42 hours. If an inmate is given extra duty pursuant to the finding of the guilt and disciplinary hearing, and the inmate refuses to perform extra duty, he or she may be charged and processed pursuant to a major disciplinary hearing for refusal. If the inmate is found guilty and giving a penalty of punitive segregation, reduction in class, loss of good conduct time, or retention in line class 3, he or she will no longer be required to perform the extra duty. So basically, extra duty is you have to go up to the officer or a officer in your building or a sergeant or whatever and ask them, hey, is there anything I can do? So the officer can say, I need you to clean these tables, I need you to sweep the floor, the porter's sick, or I need you to do this or that. So they can give them reasonable extra duties where it usually entails cleaning and picking up kind of thing. And they have a piece of paper that says, you know, the inmate's name, the time they did the extra duty, and the officer has to put their name down, how many hours they're going to give them credit for, and sign off on it. And they're also saying that if you don't do the extra duty, if you don't follow and you just blow it off, then it's going to be elevated to a major ticket. And all the rules that apply to that, losing good time and everything, applies to a major ticket. So if they get extra duty, they're expected to do the extra duty. You can't refuse to do it. I know a lot of officers sometimes the inmate would putz around and work for an hour, and they might give him 2 hours credit. So there are some officers that would give them extra time if they did a really good job and I was happy with the work they did. Sometimes I would give them a little extra. I would sign off on 3 hours instead of 2 hours. So that happened. It's really upon the officer's discretion. I've never known anyone to give an inmate less time than they did. Really, if they weren't happy with the work they did, they wouldn't give it to them, period. They wouldn't sign off on it. 3, loss of privileges not to exceed 30 days. Privileges which may be restricted are, this is what we would call LOP, loss of privileges. And in Texas, they followed through with it. They would walk you to your cell after disciplinary and have you pack up your appliances and stuff like that. And sometimes commissary, depending on what they are restricting you from. And then, they'll take it right away, and then they put it on the count sheets. So when an officer's walking around doing count, and it's also written in on the search log sheet. So when the officer looks at that paperwork, anything that comes up with your name on it and the officer sees it, it's going to say LOP. And then we're going to know what restrictions you're on. It'll specify. So the specific restrictions that you can get for 30 days on a minor ticket would be recreation. At no time shall loss of recreation exceed a total of 90 days from the date from the most recent conviction as a result of cumulative disciplinary conviction. So they're saying they can't take rec away for more than 90 days, but it's a minor ticket anyway, so you're probably not going to get, rec for 90 days. It's usually 30 days. So when in Lane Murray, in the unit where I worked at, you would walk all the way to the back of the building, and there was a door, and that door had a key to it, a skeleton key. And I would open up that door and check people off for rec. I would check them off on the count sheet or the activity sheet that they were out for rec. I would check their name off, and they would have to show their ID. And if they were on restriction and waiting in line, they could get another ticket for trying to go to rec. It happens. Or I could just, usually I would tell them, what are you doing? You can't go out. And they would just, oh, darn it, I wanted to go out with my friend, whatever. So, they can also get restrictions for commissary purchase with the exception, which means they can't go to the store. They can't buy anything from the store or spend any money that's on their books, with the exception of legal or correspondence materials and hygiene items like toothbrush, toothpaste, powder, and soap, if these items are not issued. So the only time those items would be issued to the inmate is if they're indigent, which means they have no money on their books. They will not keep them from getting, hygienic things, toothpaste and stuff. But as far as like food and chips and snacks and sodas and ice cream and stuff like that, you don't get to go to the store and buy anything like that. Which means that too, they take a note of what you have as far as store goes in your locker. And if you're caught with more than what you already had, and sometimes they'll take the commissary that you have except for hygiene if you're on restriction, and then they give it back to you later. But most of the time they would just take note of what you had already, and you're just not allowed to buy anything at the store. And if you're caught trafficking and trading and bartering by getting chips or snacks from other inmates and you're on restriction, then you'll get another ticket, and that ticket could be elevated to a major ticket. Or it could just stack up as your second ticket, and then when you get your third ticket, for whatever it might be, if you get it within 6 months, it goes to a major. They also, you can't watch TV or movies. So if you have a TV, they take it. In Texas, where I worked, they didn't have TV appliances for themselves. They had a large TV that hung from the ceiling and got to vote on it. Well, they weren't allowed to be sitting there and voting on what to watch, and they also weren't allowed to sit in the benches or the chairs and watch TV. They had to go to their cell. Personal property, with the exception of legal correspondence materials and hygiene materials, or religious literature. So they can take your personal property too. Other leisure activities. For the purpose of TDCJ ID disciplinary rules and procedures, piddling craft privileges will not be considered a leisure activity, which may be suspended as a penalty. Piddling privileges may be suspended by the unit warden or designee administratively. So that's like if you have some arts and craft or hobby craft type of projects that you're working on, sometimes you're allowed to use popsicle sticks, toothpicks, different things, and you're building things or drawing stuff or whatever it is your hobby is that's artistic or whatever. You're not allowed to participate in that for the number of days. Well, they said if they determine that they don't want you to do that, then you can't, and it can be determined by the warden or the disciplinary. Number 4, restriction not to exceed 30 days. So usually for a minor ticket, your restrictions cannot go past 30 days. At no time shall cell restriction exceed a total of 90 days from the date of the most recent conviction as a result of cumulative disciplinary convictions. Inmates restricted to their cells shall not leave their cells except for medical reasons, showers, meals, law library, visits during non-work hours only, work, education and vocational school or training, and non-contact visits. The inmate will not be allowed out of the cell restriction cell. So basically, if you're going to school, you're going to work, and you're in the building, if you're in the building, you have to be in the building and go. You can't do anything but go to the bathroom, take a shower. If I do my walk, and you're hanging out with your friends, or you're in the day room, or you're trying to go out to rec, or you're chilling with your friends, and no, you're not allowed to do that. That's the whole point of cell restriction. So they can restrict you to your cell. Now this is in a dorm setting, as I'm kind of referring to as a dorm setting, because generally if you're in a 2-man cell, you're restricted to your cell anyway. So, except for showers, right? So, cell restriction does not involve restrictions on correspondence. Inmates may receive consecutive terms in cell restriction for cumulative disciplinary convictions. When an inmate serves more than 30 continuous days of cell restriction pursuant to the minor hearing, the inmate will be allowed physical recreation out of his or her cell for a 1 hour period every 7 days. So they're saying if you have more than one ticket and you get 30 days restriction on one ticket and 30 days restriction on another ticket, first of all, they can't give you restriction more than 90 days. If they do, if they feel it's that serious, it'll probably elevate to a major ticket. But if you have multiple minor tickets, I would say 2 or 3, because honestly, when you get the third ticket, they can elevate it to a major ticket. So say you go to a hearing and you have 2 disciplinaries, they can give you a 30-day and another 30-day cell restriction. And then you, in that case, if it's over 30 days cell restriction, you're allowed recreation 1 time a week for 1 hour. And the control room and the officers keep track of that. And we're usually pretty good at keeping track of that. In Arizona, it was a joke. They had no such thing. Officers never knew who was on restriction and who wasn't, at least at Lewis Prison. It was pretty much a joke. So, nothing was followed up on. Nobody was ever notified of squat. 5, suspension of contact visit privileges for a minimum of 1 visit and a maximum of 2 months. So you could lose your visits. Under no circumstances may inmates' participation in education or vocational school or training be denied, altered, or restricted as a result of a minor disciplinary hearing. So, self-explanatory. Disciplinary hearings for the death row and administrative segregation. So that is going to be the next one that I do. And so there you go. I will say Texas was pretty strict on following through with any disciplinary procedures. All the officers in the building were notified. Everybody always knew. It was on all the documents and paperwork with your name on it. These people were on restriction. It was on the count sheets. It was on the search logs. It was on the activity logs. It was supposed to be written in your journal that you were aware of that. So there was no reason or excuse for officers not knowing that these inmates were on those type of restrictions. And so we always enforced that and kept track of it. Well, most of us did. Some of us might not have. I always thought it was important to follow through with the disciplinary because it encourages you to behave better. So, and then that made me feel better that at least my ticket would stick if I wrote one. And out of respect to other officers, I would enforce it as well. And all officers should enforce disciplinary because it's out of respect for the institution you work for the rule of law, and for other officers that are looking you over. And you should always be consistent. And I think it was important to follow through with that so inmates realize that there are consequences for their behavior. So that's it. Disciplinary rules and procedures for inmates by the book, minor disciplinary procedures. And that's it. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and watch the video through to the end. Thank you.